My beloved child. Last Christmas night did not begin with bells or laughter. It began with a silence so heavy it felt intentional. The kind of silence that warns the soul before the mind understands. While the world was busy unwrapping gifts and forgiving the year, I was standing in a place I was never meant to be, watching a truth unfold that was never meant to be seen. I did not go looking for answers. Answers came looking for me. The lights were soft. The hour was late. And what I witnessed did not scream. It whispered. That is what made it unforgettable. Your special person was there. Not alone. Not confused. Not forced. Fully present. Fully aware. Sharing something that was meant to be sacred elsewhere. Every second I stood there, my heart argued with my eyes, begging them to be wrong. But reality does not negotiate. It only reveals. And once revealed, it changes everything forever. You see, some moments do not explode. They sink in slowly, like cold water, numbing you before you realize you are drowning. That night was one of those moments. I noticed the way their voice changed. Softer. Careful. As if protecting a secret that had been practiced many times before. I noticed the timing. The comfort. The absence of guilt. That is what hurt the most. It was not a mistake. It was a pattern. A choice repeated so often that it had lost its fear. Christmas night was just the stage. The truth had been rehearsing long before. And as I stood there, unseen, unheard, I realized something terrifying. The person you trusted had already decided how much you were allowed to know. And that amount was never the full truth. What makes this harder is not what they were doing. It is what they were not doing. They were not thinking of consequences. They were not hesitating. They were not torn between right and wrong. They were calm. Comfortable. Certain. That certainty cuts deeper than betrayal itself. Because it means the decision was made long ago. Christmas did not change them. It exposed them. And in that exposure, I saw how carefully they had separated their worlds. One where you existed as safety. Another where desire, validation, and escape lived freely. They believed those worlds would never collide. They believed Christmas night would protect them with noise and distraction. They believed wrong. There is a reason this had to happen when it did. Some truths wait for symbolic moments to surface, because symbolism makes denial impossible. Christmas is about light entering darkness. About things hidden finally being revealed. And that night, the light did not come from decorations or candles. It came from awareness. The kind that cannot be switched off. When I caught them red-handed, it was not about proving guilt. It was about removing illusion. The illusion that love automatically means loyalty. The illusion that time equals honesty. The illusion that someone who smiles with you cannot lie to you. Those illusions died quietly that night. But their silence was loud enough to echo into the future. I need you to understand something important before this continues. This is not a story about shame. It is a story about clarity. About how the universe sometimes uses shock as mercy. Because living in a beautiful lie is far more cruel than facing an ugly truth. What I saw was not meant to destroy you. It was meant to wake you. Your special person was sharing something that did not belong to them alone anymore. And once something sacred is shared elsewhere, it never returns the same. As this unfolds, you will begin to recognize signs you once ignored. Moments that suddenly make sense. Feelings you buried because they felt inconvenient. Christmas night was not the end. It was the beginning of seeing clearly. And clarity, my beloved child, always comes before freedom. Listen carefully now, because what comes next is where most people look away, but you must not. After that night, nothing outward changed immediately. That is the most dangerous phase of all. The world kept moving. Messages kept coming. Smiles kept appearing on their face exactly where you expected them. And that is when the mind starts betraying itself. You begin questioning your own awareness. You start wondering if truth can really exist without visible chaos. But truth does not always announce itself with destruction. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it watches. Your special person returned to you carrying the same voice, the same habits, the same familiar presence, yet something invisible had shifted permanently. What I saw that night had already altered the future, even if the present pretended otherwise. And the longer the pretending lasted, the more powerful the revelation became. There is something unsettling about realizing how well someone can perform normalcy. They laughed at the right moments. They remembered details. They spoke of plans. They even spoke of loyalty. And yet, every word was now standing on hollow ground. That Christmas night had created a fracture you could not see, but everything was slowly bending around it. Their attention slipped at unexpected times. Their warmth arrived late. Their concern felt calculated rather than instinctive. These are not accusations. These are patterns. Patterns that only become visible once the illusion cracks. You were not imagining distance. You were sensing alignment shifting away from you. And the most painful part is understanding that your heart noticed it long before your mind allowed it to be real. What I caught was not just an act. It was a mindset. A way of separating responsibility from desire. They convinced themselves that as long as you were not hurt directly, the truth could be managed. Controlled. Delayed. But truth does not obey schedules. It leaks through behavior. Through inconsistency. Through moments when their eyes no longer mirror their words. Christmas night revealed that they were living two emotional timelines at once. One that involved you. And another that fed something missing inside them. That missing piece was never your fault. But it was quietly placed on your shoulders anyway, through silence and half-truths. And that is a burden no genuine bond should ever ask you to carry. You may be wondering why this was revealed to me instead of you. Why you did not witness it yourself. Sometimes protection looks like distance. Seeing it directly might have broken you in ways you were not ready for. Awareness arriving gently, through understanding rather than shock, is still awareness. And it gives you power. Power to choose without panic. Power to observe without confrontation. Power to reclaim yourself before being asked to forgive something you were never meant to endure. Christmas night was not meant to humiliate anyone. It was meant to realign you with your own intuition. To remind you that doubt does not come from nowhere. It comes from truth knocking quietly, waiting to be let in. As this story continues, remember this. Nothing that was revealed was accidental. Nothing you felt afterward was exaggerated. And nothing you are about to understand will be meaningless. The connection between the title and the truth is simple. I caught what you were protected from seeing, so you could receive clarity instead of devastation. Your special person was sharing something that belonged to a promise they never fully honored. And now that knowledge exists, whether spoken or not, what you do with it will define the next chapter of your life. Not theirs. Yours. Because once truth enters the room, pretending becomes impossible. And from this point forward, everything begins to move toward a moment that can no longer be avoided. There is a moment after revelation when silence becomes louder than questions. That is where you are now. Not reacting. Not confronting. Simply noticing. And noticing changes everything. Because once awareness settles in, you begin to see how carefully things were arranged around you. Conversations that suddenly felt rehearsed. Affection that arrived only when distance was sensed. Reassurance offered before you even asked, as if they were responding to something you had not yet spoken aloud. That is not coincidence. That is anticipation. The kind that comes from knowing more than one is admitting. Christmas night did not just expose an act. It exposed preparation. And preparation means intention. This is where the story deepens, because intention reveals character far more clearly than mistakes ever could. What most people fail to understand is that betrayal rarely announces itself through cruelty. It often hides behind kindness. Your special person did not suddenly become cold. They became careful. They adjusted. They balanced. They managed impressions. And that is far more dangerous than open dishonesty. Because it keeps you emotionally invested while quietly shifting the foundation beneath you. You were still included, but no longer centered. Still valued, but no longer prioritized. Still spoken to, but no longer fully spoken with. These subtle shifts are not accidents. They are symptoms of divided allegiance. And Christmas night confirmed that division was already complete, long before you sensed something was wrong. Another truth must be faced now, even if it feels uncomfortable. The connection you thought was exclusive had already been redefined without your consent. When someone shares emotional presence elsewhere, it changes the energy they bring back to you. You may have felt it as distance, distraction, or a strange emptiness after moments that once felt full. That was not your imagination. That was contrast. Your heart comparing what used to be with what now felt different. And instead of asking why, you tried harder. You became more patient. More understanding. More forgiving. Not realizing you were compensating for something you did not create. Christmas night revealed that imbalance clearly, even if it was never named aloud. There is a reason this truth is unfolding slowly. Sudden endings shock the nervous system. Slow awareness strengthens it. You are being given time to detach without collapsing. To observe without begging for explanations. To regain self-respect without turning pain into drama. That is strength forming quietly inside you. And while your special person continues moving as if nothing has changed, you are changing internally in ways they cannot control. That is why truth is powerful even when unspoken. It shifts alignment. It changes decisions. It prepares you for a moment when you will no longer accept less than clarity. And that moment is approaching faster than it appears. What comes next will not be about confrontation or confession. It will be about choice. Yours. Christmas night already locked one door permanently. Not through anger, but through understanding. And once understanding arrives, you cannot unknow what you know. The story is not finished yet. But the direction is set. What was hidden is now illuminated. What was confusing is becoming clear. And what once held power over your emotions is slowly losing its grip. Stay present. Because the next part will reveal why this truth had to surface now, and what it is quietly preparing you to step into. There comes a phase where clarity stops hurting and starts instructing. This is that phase. You are no longer shocked. You are no longer searching for confirmation. You are simply observing behavior align with what was already revealed. The pauses before replies. The selective honesty. The way they speak about the future without anchoring you firmly inside it. These are not random shifts. They are the aftereffects of a truth that has already changed direction. Christmas night did not just show what they were doing. It showed who they were becoming. And once you recognize that evolution, you stop asking why things feel different. You understand that they are different. Something else is happening quietly within you. The emotional grip that once felt permanent is loosening. Not through anger, but through realism. You are no longer building fantasies to protect the connection. You are no longer filling gaps with hope. You are allowing actions to speak without translating them into excuses. That is growth, even if it feels heavy. Your special person senses this shift, even if they cannot name it. That is why their behavior feels inconsistent. They feel control slipping, not because you confronted them, but because you stopped centering your reality around their version of events. Awareness does that. It destabilizes illusions without making a sound. It is important to understand this was never about replacing you. It was about escaping themselves. What you witnessed the consequences of was avoidance, not superiority. They sought something that required less accountability, less depth, less reflection. And while that may have felt personal, it was never a measurement of your worth. It was a reflection of their limits. Christmas night exposed that limit clearly. The inability to hold truth and commitment at the same time. The inability to choose integrity when no one was watching. That knowledge is painful, but it is also freeing. Because it removes self-blame from a situation that was never yours to fix. You may notice moments where they attempt to reconnect more intensely. Sudden warmth. Unexpected concern. Plans that sound convincing. This is not resolution. This is reaction. A response to the energetic distance you are creating by seeing clearly. Do not mistake urgency for sincerity. Real change is consistent. It does not arrive in bursts. Christmas night showed a pattern, not a moment. And patterns only dissolve through conscious accountability, not emotional gestures. You are not required to demand anything. Your clarity alone is enough to shift the dynamic beyond repair or return. Remember this. You are not losing something real. You are releasing something incomplete. The truth revealed was not meant to punish you. It was meant to position you. Position you for honesty. For peace. For a future that does not require you to doubt your own perception. Christmas night was the unveiling. What follows is alignment. And alignment always feels unfamiliar before it feels right. The next part will show you what happens when truth is no longer hidden, but no longer needs to be spoken either. There is a quiet power that arrives when you stop waiting for explanations. It feels unfamiliar at first, almost empty, but that emptiness is space being cleared. You are no longer leaning forward, hoping to be convinced. You are standing still, letting reality come to you without decoration. This is where control changes hands. Not through confrontation, not through ultimatums, but through detachment. Christmas night planted this shift. What you saw through awareness began dissolving emotional dependence without announcing its departure. And now, without effort, you are no longer asking what they feel. You are asking what you deserve. You may notice how your reactions have softened. Not because you care less, but because you see more. Their words no longer pull you in the same way. Their promises no longer spark urgency. You are listening for alignment instead of reassurance. That is a dangerous place for anyone living a divided truth. Because once someone stops feeding the illusion starves. Your special person senses this absence of emotional fuel. They may feel it as distance, as unpredictability, as something slipping beyond reach. But what is actually happening is balance returning to you. And balance does not negotiate with confusion. Another realization is settling in now. You were not meant to compete with secrecy. You were not meant to question your intuition. You were not meant to become smaller so someone else could stay comfortable. Christmas night confirmed that the connection was maintained through omission. Through selective truth. Through managing your perception rather than honoring your presence. That knowledge is no longer sharp. It is steady. And steady truth is far more powerful than emotional shock. It does not push you to react. It pulls you toward alignment. What happens next may surprise you. Not because of drama, but because of calm. You will find yourself less available emotionally. Less affected by inconsistency. Less willing to fill silence with effort. This is not punishment. This is protection. You are no longer trying to save something that was quietly slipping away before you even knew it was at risk. Christmas night was the last confirmation you needed, even if it never becomes a conversation. Some endings do not require closure. They require acceptance. And acceptance has already begun forming inside you. As this part ends, understand this clearly. You are not walking away in bitterness. You are walking forward in truth. What was revealed was not meant to trap you in pain. It was meant to release you from confusion. The story is moving toward a moment where your clarity will speak louder than any confession ever could. And when that moment arrives, you will not feel fear. You will feel ready. Because readiness is what truth prepares us for. There is a point where the past loses its voice. You are standing at that point now. Memories still exist, but they no longer command you. They no longer argue their importance. They simply pass through, acknowledged and released. This is what happens when truth has fully settled. Christmas night no longer feels like a wound. It feels like a marker. A clear line between who you were before knowing and who you are becoming now. The shift is subtle, yet irreversible. You are no longer waiting for the story to explain itself. You understand enough to move forward without hesitation. Your special person may begin to sense this finality. Not through words, but through energy. The way you no longer overextend. The way your presence feels complete without seeking validation. This often confuses those who relied on emotional access rather than emotional honesty. They may try to re-establish familiarity. To revive shared routines. To remind you of history. But history alone cannot sustain connection once alignment is lost. Christmas night did not erase the past. It revealed its limits. And once limits are seen clearly, they cannot be ignored. You might notice a surprising sense of peace arriving in moments you once felt anxious. Silence no longer feels threatening. Distance no longer feels like loss. This is because you are no longer measuring your worth through someone else's attention. You are grounded in your own clarity. That grounding changes how you move, how you listen, how you decide. It also changes what you tolerate. Not out of pride, but out of respect for yourself. Christmas night quietly returned that respect to you, even if it did not feel like it at the time. What lies ahead is not loneliness. It is discernment. You will recognize authenticity faster now. You will feel when words and actions do not align. And instead of questioning yourself, you will step back calmly. This is wisdom earned, not given. The revelation you did not ask for has refined your awareness. And refined awareness attracts a different future. One built on presence rather than performance. On honesty rather than convenience. That is the unseen gift hidden inside what was revealed. Nothing was taken from you. Something false simply fell away. Christmas night did not end a chapter prematurely. It ended it precisely on time. You are not behind. You are aligned. And alignment always leads you exactly where you are meant to stand next. The story is nearing its quiet conclusion, where strength no longer needs to announce itself, because it has already arrived. There is a stillness that follows acceptance, and it feels different from silence. Silence once made you anxious. This stillness makes you steady. You are no longer scanning for signs or decoding tone. You are present in your own space, grounded, aware, and calm. Christmas night has taken its rightful place in your memory, not as trauma, but as truth. And truth, when fully integrated, stops demanding attention. It simply guides. You are now guided by what you know rather than what you hope. That shift is quiet, but it is absolute. You may notice how easily you breathe now when their name comes up. How the emotional charge has softened into neutrality. This is not indifference. It is completion. Your nervous system understands that the threat is gone, not because the situation changed, but because you did. You no longer need certainty from them to feel secure within yourself. That dependence dissolved the moment clarity became stronger than attachment. Christmas night initiated that process. Awareness finished it. And now, what once felt heavy no longer defines your emotional landscape. Something important is happening beneath the surface. Your standards are recalibrating. Not through rules, but through resonance. You are becoming sensitive to truth in a way that cannot be fooled by performance. When someone speaks, you feel whether it is aligned. When someone promises, you sense whether it is rooted. This is discernment born from experience, not fear. It does not close your heart. It protects it wisely. Christmas night did not harden you. It refined you. And refinement always precedes elevation. The connection you are stepping into next will not require guessing. It will not require patience beyond reason. It will not require you to question your intuition. That is the difference now. You have lived through misalignment and survived with grace. That experience has sharpened your awareness without diminishing your capacity to care. And that balance is rare. It makes you ready for something real. Not louder. Not dramatic. Just honest. And honesty feels calm, not chaotic. You were never meant to stay where truth had to hide. Christmas night was not an interruption. It was a redirection. And redirections often feel uncomfortable until you realize they saved you from walking much farther in the wrong direction. You are not carrying this story forward as pain. You are carrying it as wisdom. And wisdom will always lead you toward a life that feels whole, steady, and unmistakably your own.